Hello, everyone. I know it's been a while, but I was too busy watching Asteroid City in the theaters 4 times. I watched it for the fourth time this morning, and I brought my handy dandy little notepad to take some notes because I found the themes very resonating and interesting. Themes of nihilism, suicide, what's the point of life, what's the point of living. So, yeah, let's talk about it, shall we? Before we start, I just want to say I'll be talking about the plot in full, so spoiler warning if you haven't seen it and want to go in blind. But if you have seen it, you might notice that there are some parts that I leave out talking about, mainly because I still haven't figured out what it means, and I don't feel confident enough saying my theories online for everyone to see. Now, I could have just Googled Asteroid City explained into Google and then regurgitate whatever BuzzFeed article shows up for me to you guys, but I wanted to use my own ideas and opinions. So I have not read any analysis or watched any videos about Asteroid City. What you're about to see is just all my thoughts and ideas from watching it 4 times, and I have no other influence besides that. But I have read one thing, that being Do Not Detonate Without Presidential Approval. This is the book that kind of goes along with the movie. It's edited by Wes Anderson. Basically, it's a collection of newspaper articles or just articles or essays about the American West, cinema in the 1950s, theater in the 1950s, all that stuff that influenced the movie, picked out by Wes Anderson himself. So I've just been reading that. I haven't finished it yet, but it's a pretty interesting read. So if you liked the movie, I encourage you to read that as well. That's the only thing I've read, so let's get into it. First, I want to start off with the direct references to nihilism and death that I picked up on the movie and what made me want to make this video in the first place. First of all, with the deaths, we start with Augie's wife slash Woodrow's mom slash Stanley's daughter, who is dead. All we know about her is that she had to succumb to her illnesses and then has passed away, and they bury her ashes in the movie. Augie also mentions to his kids that his mom died when he was really young. Then we have Stanley, who mentions that his wife drank herself to death. Then General Gibson says that his dad died during World War I, and Dr. Hickenlooper mentions that her mom died a few decades ago and she still misses her. And lastly, Conrad Earp dies in a car crash at the end of the movie. So yeah, that's a lot of death. So yeah, with death all around the movie, the questions, especially Woodrow and Augie, start to question, well, what is the meaning of life? What do we do with our finite amount of time here? Is it worth it? What's the purpose? I don't know. And they sort of spiral into this crisis. I think it's interesting to also look at this through the perspective of suicide, of questioning what's the point of living? What's the point of being on Earth if it doesn't make sense and nothing matters? And I'll get to those points in a second. Because we do have a fake suicide scene between Midge and Augie as Midge is rehearsing for a movie that she's in. We also, again, Stanley mentions that his wife drank herself to death, which, by accident or not, is still a suicide. And at one point, Schubert has the line, "I don't think I should be in a building with real windows," and we'll get back to that line in a second. And lastly, the end credit song is Freight Train, and if you look at the lyrics of that song, yeah, it's sort of about suicide. The first thing we have to do is define the play and reality. Basically, everything you see in color is a play. It's all fake. Bryan Cranston explains this at the beginning. Asteroid City is fictional. It is a play being put on by actors. Everything in black and white is about the actors putting on the play, specifically about Conrad Earp, the playwright, and Schubert Green, the director. Now, I know for a lot of people, and especially me, on the first watch, it can be pretty confusing separating the two and seeing what the two of them have to do with each other, because they're pretty much two different stories, and you're like, why is this here? Why can't it just be either about a bunch of actors or be about what's happening in Asteroid City? And I think that's where a lot of people get turned off to the movie. But if you're willing to accept it and we sort of go with it, which again we'll talk about later, you'll have a good time. And actually, Wes Anderson does talk about this in the little interview he does at the beginning of the book, which I will be reading right now. When talking about having both the play storyline and the Asteroid City storyline in the movie, Wes Anderson says this: I do always feel that a movie for me is not one idea. It's sort of at least two sort of separate things that come together and start to become a movie. He goes on to say, it's hard for me on one viewing to decide what the primary story is. The opening is from the booth of a live television studio, a Playhouse 90 type studio. From the beginning, you're not where you expect to be. So yeah, with that in mind, it is Wes Anderson's sort of intention to have people watch the movie at least twice, which I know that's sort of crazy to expect from people, but hey, I saw it 4 times and I think I'm beginning to understand it, so I'm following Wes's idea and watching it more than once, and I really recommend if you didn't sort of really get it the first time, go ahead and watch it a second time. When I saw it the second time, a lot of things started clicking in place for me, so I highly recommend doing that. But let's talk a little bit about the black and white parts, aka the Playhouse acting parts, specifically about Conrad and Schubert. Conrad is the playwright who wrote Asteroid City, and Schubert is the director who directed Asteroid City. So basically, they are sort of the gods in this universe. They have dictated everything that happens on screen. Every sort of line of dialogue that comes from anything in the Asteroid City section in color, that is written by Conrad. It is all directed by Schubert. It is coming from them. And once you look at it through that lens, it starts to become a lot more interesting, because we do have a scene where Schubert is talking to his soon-to-be ex-wife. They are about to get a divorce. His wife is seeing someone else, and he's living on the stage. He's living backstage of where the play is happening, and they even built him like a little house set to live in. And that's where he says, I don't think I should be in a building with real windows, which is a big insight into what he's feeling right now, because that is alluding to some sort of suicidal ideation. And once you put that into perspective, that the entire Asteroid City play is being directed by that guy, it's a whole different way of viewing things. Now let's talk about one of the big central themes of the movie, which is chaos and control. The best example of this theme is through the character June, who is played by Maya Hawke. She's a elementary school teacher. Basically, she is very by the books, rule follower, and likes to keep things on schedule. And of course, an alien visits Asteroid City, kind of swirling everything into chaos, something that is out of her control. And from there on out, the city of Asteroid City is put into a quarantine, and now she has to teach all these kids who can only focus on the alien when she wants to stick to a different lesson plan. Obviously, there is a big parallel here to COVID and what happened in our real world, where one big thing just sort of happened overnight and everyone's world was turned upside down, and there is no more lesson plan to follow because everything's going crazy. And I can only imagine the conversations that took place in virtual elementary school classrooms where the teacher is just trying to go throughout their lesson plan, but all of their kids are curious about what's going on in the real world. What's COVID? Why do we have to quarantine? What's going on? And so that is a direct parallel to what's going on here with June and her kids, as her kids can only fixate on the alien and the big world-changing event that happened before their eyes. And of course, June isn't prepared to answer all these questions about the alien because she doesn't have the answers. And so she just goes along to the lesson plan to, quote, maintain orderliness among the circumstances. And by the end of the movie, we see one of her students break out into song and everyone starts dancing, and there's this guy in the band that she's sort of been flirting with a little bit, and they finally get together and start dancing. This is when June finally gives in to the lack of control that she has about the situation. She can't control everything in life, and the best thing you can do is just give in and sort of go with the chaos and have fun with it. And by the end, June is dancing, smiling with the guy she likes, and all the kids are dancing, having fun, and that's the only thing you can do in a crazy situation like that, is just sort of give in to the chaos. And that singing and dancing scene sort of mirrors something General Gibson said in his opening speech. He says the men that he was with during World War II would put on hula skirts and dance on the beach, and he says that was the life. Basically, the unexplainable horrors of World War II are going on behind them, and the only thing they can do is put on hula skirts and just dance, and that's the life. You have to give in to this uncontrollable chaos around you. The horror that is World War II is happening, and the only thing you can do is just dance. And that's what they did. That's what June did with her students. And believe it or not, that this theme is actually established at the very beginning of the movie, or the play Asteroid City, is when Augie's car breaks down. He brings it into the shop, and the mechanic is like, okay, this is either one of two options. Option one is a really easy fix. It's a 75-cent part. We'll just replace it and you'll be good to go. Option two is basically we're going to have to scrap your entire car and it's worthless. And then he goes up, he tries to fix the car, and then it starts running, and it's like, great, option one happened, we're good. And then the car breaks down again, and he's like, uh-oh, this is an option three that we've never seen before. And I think this resembles the sort of linear thinking that us humans have. Basically, when going into a scenario, we can only think of the best case and the worst case and really nothing in between, because how are we supposed to expect and prepare for something we've never seen before? So we only think about the best outcome or the worst outcome, and there's a whole bunch of outcomes we haven't even considered before. So the car breaking down in this scenario number 3 that we've never seen or heard of before is sort of alluding to what's about to come with the alien when they're about to experience something they've never seen or heard before. Of course, the case that's being made here is in these uncontrollable, chaotic situations, you just have to give in and go with the flow. And we see a handful of characters and their life isn't exactly where they imagined it. And I think that also sort of goes along with this theme. Dr. Hickenlooper has this sort of throwaway line where she mentions, oh, sometimes I think about what my life would be like if I had kids. Sometimes I wish I had them. But now it's kind of too late for her in life, and she doesn't have any. And it's like, oh, well, those are my circumstances. Along with Midge, who is trapped in playing these really sad, depressing movie roles when she thinks she's a really good comedian. She's good at comedy, but yet she doesn't have the opportunity to do it. And these characters are sort of stuck in their situations and wish, what would life be like if this? And at this point, they just sort of have to give in to what their life already is and continue living it. Now let's talk about the big one, the big theme, existence. What does it mean? Why are we here? What's the meaning of life, etc.? The best way to ease into the conversation is with the character Clifford, because it's sort of spelled out for us. Basically, Clifford is the kid who asks, do you dare me? And then you're like, dare you to do what? And then he'll say something dangerous. We all know a kid like this from school who asks other people to dare them to do things just so they can do something crazy and silly. Near the end of the movie, his dad asks him, why does someone always have to dare you to do something? Why can't you just do it yourself? To his response, that he's afraid that nobody will notice him in the universe. And from real life experience, we know that kids that do this basically just want attention. They want people watching them. But from Clifford's point of view, he just encountered an alien. His life must feel really small right now. And now he's like, I don't know if I'm going to be seen in the entire universe. I'm just one person. And when no one's watching me, Am I even real? Am I here? He seeks other people's validation of watching him do crazy, silly things because at least eyes are on him. That's when he knows his existence is real. Now let's talk about a more predominant character, Woodrow. Basically, he's very shy, he's a late bloomer, but he's really smart. And when he meets up with the fellow smart kids, the junior stargazers and space cadets, that's when he really finds his place. He starts sitting all alone, eating his lunch, and the other smart kids invite him to sit with them, and that's where they become friends. He meets Dinah, which will be his romantic interest, and they all bond together. One of my favorite parts of the movie is when they play the sort of name memorization game where they go around in a circle and they each name a real-life person, and they have to remember each one that has been said before them, and they keep going around and around. And of course, since they're super smart, they're really good at memorizing and they're really good at playing the game. And one of them says, I don't think this game works with smart people like us. We just are really good at memorizing and maybe this isn't fun. To which one of my favorite lines in the movie is, well, no one else at school will play this with me. Like, I can only play this with you guys. And I was like, Oh, it's so sweet because it shows the community of friendship that they're building, and that on their own, at their own schools, they feel really alienated, and they can't make that many friends because they don't relate to that many people. But when they're together, they find this sort of community, and where they're validated, where they can be friends, where they can have conversations and play games with each other for the first time. Of course, a prime example of this is when Dinah and Woodrow are in the telescope with Dr. Hickenlooper, and Dinah says sometimes she feels more at home outside of the atmosphere, and Woodrow says, "Me too." These are two people that don't really know their place in the world yet. They feel like outsiders. They don't know their place in the world. What they know and love is up there in the stars, and now that they're together, they don't have to feel alone. And of course, Dr. Hickenlooper is there too, and she also loves the stars. And that brings us to one of my favorite scenes in the movie, and probably one of the most pivotal scenes, and that's when Dr. Hickenlooper finds out the kids stole a lot of her technology and have been trying to contact the alien. And to which she is not mad, she's not angry, she just says, "Without me? You guys are trying to contact the alien without me? I want in." And I think that's what makes Dr. Hickenlooper probably my favorite character, I've decided after my fourth viewing, because then she pulls Woodrow aside as Woodrow is sort of having this crisis of what's the meaning of life. I want to have a purpose. Is this worthwhile? Is what we're doing worthwhile here? Because if I can't contact the alien, then my life's not worthwhile. The alien and this grand thing is what's giving me a purpose in life right now, and if I can't contact the alien, I don't have a purpose. So Dr. Hickenlooper pulls him aside and says, "Listen, what you're doing right now, it's all worthwhile." She says, "Trust in your curiosity. Keep your curiosity alive, because that's what will give you a purpose. There are still so many unanswered questions in this universe, and we need you, this generation. We need you around to answer these, because my generation, we failed at answering these questions. The celestial flirtation theory, we still don't have the math on that, but your generation, you can figure that out." To which Dr. Hickenlooper says, "Hey, you can use my technology at any time, and you can be my protege of sorts." And this is when it ties back to her never having kids, because now there's sort of at least sort of role model dynamic, protege, mentor. I wouldn't call it sort of motherly, but, at least that sort of relationship is there, to where now Dr. Hickenlooper does feel like maybe she's responsible for the upbringing of this child and his education and learning and his sense of self. And at the end of the conversation, Dr. Hickenlooper opens up about her dead mother, saying that she still misses her. And this is going beyond science and just relating to this kid who's in grief, saying, "Hey, I want to help you. I know I'm still thinking about my mom, and I'm pretty sad about her dying, so it's okay if you do too." And now the two of them have built that relationship of where now Dr. Hickenlooper sort of has a kid, quote unquote, and now Woodrow has found his meaning of solving all of these scientific questions and realizes why he's here. And of course, in my opinion, Woodrow is the big winner of the movie, because he walks away with the $5,000 check, with a girlfriend, and he's already planning his next invention for next year. Ultimately, I do think there's a parallel between the kids and the alien that visits Earth. None of them feel at place. They're confused. They don't know where they are in the world, and they just want to make their mark. And guess what the alien does at the end of the movie? He returns the asteroid, and he has inventoried it. So there's this markings on the bottom of the asteroid saying that the alien inventoried the asteroid. And what is inventorying? None other than proving that you were there. All right, now let's get into more of the complicated stuff with the relationship between Augie and Midge. To start off, I think we need to start with the line that Midge says, saying the reason why they're attracted to each other is that they are two catastrophically wounded people who don't express their pain. Whoa. Let's analyze this. Augie is a war photographer, and Midge is a dramatic actor. Augie, it never says this directly in the movie, but sort of my interpretation is that He's a war photographer because he likes to go out there, and maybe when he's out there on the battlefield, maybe he hopes that he gets hurt. He goes out there for a sense of life, a sense of self that prove that he's living. If there's a chance of death, that means I'm really alive. Maybe I'll get shot today, maybe I won't. I have some shrapnel in the back of my head, and he goes out there sort of to get that buzz. Midge, on the other hand, does the same. She says that acting is her life, and she will always prioritize her career over her children, and she knows that makes her sort of a bad person, but, she just loves acting so much, but she loves acting so much that she's sort of turning into her characters that she's playing because she's sort of a method actor. Midge says something to the sense of, I play tragic, abused alcoholics, and one day I'll probably end up one. She's so deep into her acting that she is actively hurting herself by taking on these roles and becoming these personas time and time again, putting her head in the mind space of tragic, abused alcoholics, and that must take a mental toll on her to where she can predict, I'm probably going to end up like the characters I play. And that takes us to Midge's suicide scene, where she is rehearsing a suicide scene for a movie with Augie's help, and while they're practicing, Midge tells Augie to use his grief. And Augie's like, well, I'm not in this movie, like, why do I need to use my grief? And Midge is like, use your grief. And then he does. And this is them, two catastrophically wounded people coming together to help each other through their wounds. Midge, when she's asking Augie to use his grief, that's Midge's way of helping him grieve. It's like, hey, I think there's some of the stuff inside you that hasn't been resolved. Let me help pull it out of you through this rehearsal scene. But really, she's just helping him grieve. After the rehearsal, they talk about their relationship and that Midge's daughter, Dinah, actually saw them doing something physical. It's alluded to, whether like sleeping together or just something else physical. And Midge is like, this can't be the start of something. And then she questions herself and says, well, could it be? I don't know. And I think this is when Midge is finally coming into her own autonomy, as her natural response is, oh, well, we can't do this. This isn't the start of anything. We're just going to go home after this and pretend it never happened. And then she questions, well, why can't it? Like, if I want to do this, I should be able to. And she's right. She says in the movie that she's had a very toxic relationship with the men in her life, her dad, brothers, uncles, and whatnot. And now that she's finally found Augie, a man that she sort of feels safe with, she's like, well, why can't this be the start of something new? And Augie is like, well, this woman just helped me grieve through my pain. This is when Augie puts his hand on the quickie griddle, which we will get back to as it is a very important part of the movie. At the end of the movie, Midge leaves Augie her address to where there's still some communication that could be had in between them. And yeah, that's where it sort of leaves off. And maybe they'll get together later. We don't know. But I think this is sort of the same lesson that Woodrow learned. It's basically, when you feel alone in life, the best thing to do is connect with someone who's going through something similar. And that's what Woodrow did with his fellow brainiacs. And this is what Augie is doing by finding another catastrophically wounded person who hasn't processed their pain, and the two of them get together and then help each other process the pain. Now let's talk about one of the most important scenes of the movie is between Augie and Schubert, or should I say the actor who plays Augie and Schubert. In Act 3, the actor who plays Augie runs off stage. He's not supposed to, and he exits early to run over to Schubert and asks, am I doing this right? I don't think I'm doing this right. I don't think I'm playing the character of Augie right. My heart hurts when I'm acting like I feel for him. I don't know what I'm doing. And Schubert is like, no, you're doing it. You're doing great. One interpretation here is sort of how I mentioned earlier, is that everything in Asteroid City is a play that is written by someone and directed by someone. So now when Augie is talking to the director, that's sort of like, I don't know if this is a stretch here, talking to God. He's talking to the person that is supposed to have all the answers. You're the director of the play. What's the answer here? Am I doing it right? It's almost as if you're looking up to the sky and asking God, am I doing this right? And his response is yes. And the actor who plays Augie is like, but I don't understand the play. Like, I don't, why does Augie burn his hand on the quickie griddle? I don't know. And Schubert's response is, you don't need to understand the play. You just have to keep going. And through the lens of suicide, this is really impactful because you don't know what's going on. The world is a crazy place. You don't have all the answers, but at the end of the day, you just have to keep going because you're doing it right. You're playing yourself right. There is no right way to be yourself as long as you just are. And that's why you have to keep going. And that's the actor who plays Augie and his conversation with Schubert. But earlier in the movie, the actor who plays Augie also has a conversation with Conrad, the playwright, and where he asks Conrad, why does Augie burn his hand on the quickie griddle? And Conrad is like, I don't know. And this is where I'm going to say the question of why does Augie burn his hand on the quickie griddle? That is equivalent to asking, what is the meaning of life? That's just my interpretation. Those two questions are the same. And so, again, he's asking God, why does Augie burn his hand on the quickie griddle? AKA, what's the meaning of life? God says, I don't know. To which Augie responds, well, I read it as that he's looking for an excuse on why his heart is beating so fast. And then Conrad is like, yeah, let's go with that. And just then, Augie made his own meaning by himself. He found his own meaning. He's not given the meaning by someone else. He's like, well, it could mean this, and then he goes along with it. AKA, what's the meaning of life? No one's going to tell you. You got to find your own interpretation and go along with it. After the conversation with Schubert, the actor who plays Augie goes outside, runs into Margot Robbie, the woman who played his wife in the previous version of the script, but the scene with the wife got cut, and now she's off doing a different play. The two of them have a conversation, and they recite some of their old lines they had together. That's a whole other thing that I haven't really delved into just yet in my mind, but at the end of the exchange, the line is said, all my pictures come out. And that's something that Augie says quite often in the movie. He keeps saying, yeah, well, all my pictures come out. Because, again, he's a photographer and he takes pictures of a lot of things. And he says, all my pictures come out. And in my interpretation of that is like, I always make it through. I always come out of whatever situation I'm in. It's a bad situation. I always come out. And that's goes along with the theme of you have to keep going even if you don't understand. All my pictures come out. I always come out of the situation, sometimes with scars. Then that's a reference to his self-portrait that he shows Midge a little bit earlier in the movie. Is like, well, here's a self-portrait of myself with a bunch of shrapnel. It's like sometimes you'll come out of a situation with scars, sometimes not, but at the end of the day, you'll always come out. Then we reach the end of the movie, the epilogue, where Stanley, Augie, and Woodrow are all at the diner with the three girls. The atomic bomb goes off again. The car chase happens again, and life continues on. The world keeps going. That's my interpretation of the bomb and the car chase. That's, it's sort of a motif that's like, hey, the world, this is what the normal world is, and finally it's back to normal. Atomic bombs are going off again. Car chases are happening again. The alien thing is over. Let's resume our life. And as we look back at Asteroid City and we see that highway ramp that is indefinitely closed. It goes up and then immediately cuts off. And to me, that's how long we're here on Earth. We get on and just as fast we get off. So what do we do with that short amount of time here? We find a meaning for ourselves. We make connections to those we feel connected to, and we try and answer the things the people before us couldn't. And of course, that's just one interpretation. Another interpretation is that, hey, nothing matters. My proof of this is Jeff Goldblum's line. He's the actor who plays the alien in the play Asteroid City, to where he says, I'm playing the alien as a metaphor. And he's asked, a metaphor of what? And he says, I don't know. And I think that's a little funny line for Wes Anderson to be like, "Hey, if you don't understand these metaphors, it's maybe because I just wanted to include it. Not everything has to be a metaphor. You're looking too deep into this with your silly little video that you're making, and so yeah, nothing matters. You think it's a metaphor, but it's not actually a metaphor." And well, a power outage just happened, and so my ring light turned off. But I want to say thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, check out my other videos. Leave your ideas, theories, metaphors, whatever interpretation of Asteroid City in the comments. I'd love to hear it. What do you think? Do you agree with some of my interpretations? Do you not? What details did I miss? What does "you can't wake up if you don't fall asleep" mean? Help me out there. Let's continue the conversation in the comments. Have a good one. I'll see you in the next video.